for rotation on this thing, if we set this up, remember when you build this cartridge, that the bevels, these bevels here, okay, will always line up with the inlets. Okay, so that's something you have to keep in mind. When you're looking at this top-down view, we've got the different quadrants laid out here, and I want to change the rotation. So I want to take this pump off the shelf, and I know I've got a machine, and the pump drive turns clockwise. So that means I'm going to have to change this. Because we're looking down, let's pretend this is the drive shaft end that you're looking at. It's now a counterclockwise rotation pump. Does everyone understand that and why it's counterclockwise? We're good with that? Okay, so if I want to change it,
just the direction of the angle, or the angle of the
yeah, if you look here, I'll push that one.
Well, because it has to push into the seat all the way out.
Yeah, I just couldn't tell where the, yeah, it's what the name was.
It's called glasses.
Okay. So this is counterclockwise, and we want to flip around. So the module says you turn the camera ring 90 degrees. So if I take the camera ring and if I turn the camera ring 90 degrees, I could turn it the opposite direction and I would have some ports that get bigger and ports that get smaller, but I still have a rotor and vanes that are now in the wrong direction, right? So that didn't do anything for me. So I want to go back to the way it was originally. This is how it's sitting, like so. And if I want to change direction or rotation, all I do is I take that whole center section, and I can even take the pressure plates. If I was actually doing this, it'd be even better to take the pressure plates and flip them 180 degrees, right? Flip them right over. So if I do that, if I'm going to take that whole center section, I want you to pay attention to where the ellipse is. So this area here, this area here. If I flip it over 180, the ellipse is now pointing 90 degrees in the opposite direction, right? Like, so it has. So the module isn't wrong. The cam ring essentially moves 90 degrees, but now we've also turned the rotor and the vanes as well. So we flip the rotor and vane, so now I can turn this. This will have a clockwise rotation to it. So now I put it back into the housing. And the nice thing about this is when you flip this over, we're keeping the orientation of where the ins and the outs are. So that never changes. So nothing changes about the cartridge itself as far as where our in ports are and our out ports are. It's just I can spin that rotor the opposite direction and it doesn't, and it'll pump properly. Does that make sense? So that's all you do. So you flip the rotor, the vanes, and the cam ring, and then you assemble it. When you assemble it, there's another way to tell. And so when you're going through this and you're doing the assessment, when you hand it test and say, okay, well, did I get full marks? Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for this proper orientation. And we can look at the cartridge and you can tell and make sure that everything is oriented properly like that. So we'll look at that and we'll say, okay, well, now the rest of it isn't assembled, right? So we'll put this on here. When I assemble this, I can take that and I'm going to take that on there, put the plate on, and I can mess around. It doesn't matter because these things have been apart so much. And when I build it all up, and I'm looking at where all the ports are for the intake, and I put it like that, say, okay, well, I built it like this, and now I need the 2 screws that go in. When I assemble it to this point, there's only going to be 2 holes that line up for these 2 screws. So the 2 holes that line up, there's one here, and once I get everything sort of lined up, like so, and that one. So those can go in, and now the cartridge, I can snug those up a little bit. Okay, remember, just finger tight. We don't want them too tight. You'll lose marks if they're tight, and if I can't move it around a little bit because it's supposed to be slightly loose. If you look here, the way this is assembled is the way I showed you. The arrows, notice the arrows by the screws. So when I put the screws in those holes, then the arrow matches the direction that this pump is going to turn from this direction. So if I look at this, the way I've assembled this, have I assembled this for clockwise or counterclockwise rotation?
Clockwise on springing.
If I look, well, it's clockwise for me. So if I look down here, it's the same as looking down there. But do I check rotation of this cartridge from this end or this end? So once it's assembled, and it goes into the housing, the rotation is actually from this end, right? So that means that from this end here, then it's going to be turning in that direction. That's the way I need to turn this pump. So have I assembled it for clockwise or counterclockwise? I've assembled it for counterclockwise.